Nigeria 2026, the year all hell breaks loose. It's September 2026. The inevitable has arrived. Nigeria is now a nation in free fall, its foundations collapsing under the crushing weight of decades of reckless borrowing, unchecked spending, economic mismanagement, systemic corruption, and failed leadership. For those of us who have been paying close attention, this looming collapse comes as no surprise. It isn't mere speculation or alarmism. It is a harsh reality laid bare by rigorous analysis and undeniable evidence. Using advanced predictive models powered by machine learning techniques, sophisticated algorithms, and large data sets, I have analyzed thousands of potential scenarios based on Nigeria's current economic, financial, political, and social factors. The results paints a chilling picture of an impending crisis, exposing our nation's vulnerability with unsettling precision. 1. Economic factors included in the model are GDP growth, inflation rate, unemployment rate, exchange rate, stability, fiscal deficit, trade balance, debt to GDP rate, debt servicing costs, government revenue and expenditure, foreign reserves, and tax collection efficiency. Financial sector. Okay, let me go to the highlights. Let me read now. One, these are the issues that will be. This is just in a very short while, just next year. This projection makes sense, but I think it's really alarming. But I don't know how real it will be, because it's just very short. We're talking about next year. Now, one, Nigeria's credit rating downgraded. That is what will happen. Projection. I just jumped to the word so that we'll just read through. What will happen in year 2026? One, Nigeria's credit rating downgraded. Global lenders cut ties. All hell breaks loose as credit rating agencies downgrade Nigeria's sovereign credit rating to junk status, triggering a wave of panic. International private creditors issues immediate debt call notices, cutting Nigeria off from critical funding. Multilateral lenders such as the World Bank and IMF, along with bilateral creditors, respond too slowly to provide a lifeline, leaving the government stranded without viable options, with no new loans, no debt relief, and foreign reserves depleted. The economy plunges into a devastating free fall, leaving the nation teetering on the edge of collapse. Number two, Nigeria defaults on external debt obligation. Nigeria defaults on its external obligations as the government fails to meet its debt repayment schedules. The naira collapses, inflation soars to uncontrollable levels, and fiscal stability shatters. What remains of international investors pull out en masse, further accelerating the economic downturn. 3. Banking sector collapses. Nationwide bank runs. Banking sector collapses. Nationwide bank runs begin. Investor confidence evaporates overnight, triggering a catastrophic meltdown in the banking sector. Banks across the country face mass withdrawals as desperate citizens scramble to salvage their dwindling savings, only to find their accounts frozen, their futures uncertain. Number 4, creditors seize oil tankers. In a ruthless move to recover their losses, private creditors seized Nigeria's oil tankers, severing the country from its primary source of revenue. Federal accounts dry up, leaving the government unable to fund essential operations. Number 5, government payroll collapses, triggering hyperinflation. Government coffers dry up, and salaries and pension payments grind to a halt. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, the government prints massive amounts of naira, fueling hyperinflation and causing the currency to collapse. Basic necessities become unaffordable, pushing millions into extreme poverty. Number 6, federal remittance to states cease. Weak states face collapse. The federal government stops sending allocations to the states, bringing state government to their knees. Without these funds, essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure projects collapse. State governors and local governments, devoid of alternatives, declare financial emergencies, leading to widespread insolvencies. Number 7, nationwide food, medicine, and fuel shortages deepen. With oil export halted and supply chains broken, food, medicines, and fuel become scarce commodities. Prices skyrocket beyond affordability, leading to mass hunger and desperation. Gas stations run dry. Businesses reliant on fuel grind to a halt, and black market prices soar beyond the reach of ordinary Nigerians. Oil theft is rampant as citizens crack upon pipelines to drain crude oil for backyard refining. 8, looting and widespread social unrest. Desperate Nigerians take to the streets in search of food, fuel, and basic necessities. Supermarkets, warehouses, and government food storage facilities are looted, with mobs stripping them bare within hours. Armed gangs and vigilantes fill the power vacuum, turning once thriving cities into chaotic backgrounds. Now, we have number 9, law and order breakdown. This again, you don't want to listen to, you don't want to hear this. Number 10, nationwide power supplies. Number 11, public health system collapses. Number 12, educational system shuts down. Number 13, essential services collapses completely. Number 14, economic activity grinds to a halt and markets crash. 15, diplomatic isolation grows. 16, mass migration and refugee. Now, it goes on up to barrister. This is a scary. Now, you can say, when I read this, I just view it as something that is just not feasible. It can't happen. But again, common sense. Remember how this article started? It started from this issue of borrowing. That is the problem. That is the focus of this article is about the danger of what Tinubu, the borrowing pattern of the government, especially this current government. Like I said earlier, in 2 years, I have lost count of how much loan this government has either applied for or secured. That's to tell you how, the others tell you that it is astronomically unusual. Barrister, you had everything here. You have, I don't know, probably someone will call this doomsday prediction or whatever. Based on this guy, this is scientific stuff. Some of these things are done, all those projections. US did it sometimes during Obasanjo time that Nigeria will collapse in so and blah, 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 blah. It never happened. But this man, this doctor that wrote this is actually, it made sense, because what we are facing right now in a layman's language is a situation where we have outborrowed. We are not even outborrowing. We already have outborrowed our resources. Now we have come to a situation where that is why it is so short now, because we are in that current situation right now. That is why the time is so short. The man projected just barely a year next year. We have outborrowed what we are earning. So it means that we can no longer, if you go through the detail of this article, we can no longer service the debt. That is, the interest rate has become so astronomical that we can't even service just the interest. Barrister, what is your take on this article?
Yes, the financial Armageddon that has been predicted is certainly feasible, even though not in the very short term. That certainly not in 2026, not even in 2027, or up to 2030. But having said that, if we continue on this trajectory, the time that this Armageddon should happen will continually begin to reduce. At a point, there must be some sense and sensibilities in our leadership. We are galloping downhill. If we do not apply the brakes, certainly at a point we will have that financial Armageddon. And nobody should say that it does not happen. It happened in Argentina. And Argentina, up to today, are struggling to come out of the quagmire, the financial quagmire that they put themselves. And the problem is that we are in a worse position than Argentina to come out of any hole we have fallen into. The recklessness of the political class, the sheer level of corruption, the sheer amount of theft of public funds, the sheer amount of misappropriation of public funds, misuse, and lack of proper direction of public funds. If this level continue, nobody can tell you that a physical Armageddon will not happen. It will happen. But we hope and pray, because at the end of the day, we always say God is with Nigeria. Whenever Nigeria comes to the brink of collapse, we always see the hand of God in it. But it is a warning. We cannot continue to eat our future. Otherwise, the future will catch up with us in the present. If we continue to recklessly eat our future, the future will hemorrhage and meet us before the future comes. Today, the sheer amount of borrowing, and the reason I say that it is not next year or the year after, is that they can always restructure. They can always, for now, find means to pay the interest rates for the foreign. The foreign lenders are very happy to lend us this money. The West is very happy because that is the way of total control of third world countries. Lend them money that they cannot pay. Then you begin to dictate what they do and what they say.
Barrister,
and how they
do you believe that at this point that our debt has overwhelmed our income?
Well, I'm not certain yet if we have reached that point. But the point that must be made is that,
remember, this question. Remember, sorry to cut you short. Remember, the Buhari government had already mortgaged our oil sector, our oil income. I don't know if you still remember that.
I
he
know
borrowed
that,
money he borrowed money for upfront production of oil as a form of payment.
I know that Buhari borrowed about 77 trillion during his tenure. That's the foreign component. There were local components of CBN, borrowing from the CBN, which they have also pushed forward. So if this government is now talking about, like I told you earlier, approval has been got for Tinubu to borrow about 24 point something billion dollars. If you put it in Naira terms, that is hundreds of trillions. If you add to what we already have, it is a choking debt burden. And it is most unpalatable because we had exited the debt burden under Obasanjo to reposition the economy we have resources we have can be applied properly. Now we are back. We are back into that chokehold of foreign debt. And we are going ahead even more. The chokehold is tightening and tightening and tightening.
Now, let me ask you, why would a lender borrow someone who is already delinquent? Give me the reason why will a lender, you want to lend money and the bank just pull up your data, your financial data, and find out that, man, you are all full of everywhere just debt, and apart from everywhere being in, we are indebted. That what you, if the resources you have, you are borrowing money, but they don't, for the ability for you to even repay back, it's not there because the resources, your debt has overwhelmed or is already overwhelming your resources. So why will a borrower actually lend you money in such states?
Well, that has to do with the international world order. You know, U.S. has been, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the world has been a monolithic world in the sense that there's only one known superpower, the United States. Now, challenges are coming up against that sole superpower from China, from other lesser powers, India, Russia, and others. You know of the BRICS countries coming together to separate from the dollar. That is a critical threat to the current international world order, which is led by the US. Now, it is in the interest of the Western countries. And even before this challenge, the lending, if you read one article, the man said, look, what do we do? How do we control the world? How do we control third world countries? We identify a country that is poor, that does not have money, and we offer to lend them money. They take. When they are unable to pay, we lend them more. We continue to lend them more until they are unable to pay. At that point, we determine what happens in that country. We determine what they say on the international stage. We determine what they say within their own country. We determine how the economy goes. It is about control. The West is sufficiently rich to set aside money to ensure control, even if at the end of the day they do not recover all their lending. They are sure to recover at least the principal. Interest will continue to roll. At the end of the day, they will be able to recover at least all what they lent. But in return, they will have total control over all these countries, and they will amalgamate to themselves in their fight against emerging threats to the international world order. That is why you see China also coming into the lending issue now. China is one of the biggest lenders to countries like Nigeria today because they are doing following the book that the West has used. China is all over Africa. They are lending for building of airports, building of seaports. And when they have the Chinese agreement is so onerous that if you are unable to pay, Chinese take over your airports.
Yeah,
they take over your seaports. So you can see they are reading from the Western books. It is a competition on the world stage. We are just onlookers, unfortunately.
yeah.
And we are putting ourselves in a situation where we will not have any say. We are just people that will be pushed around anyhow when the time comes. That is the tragedy. And our short-sighted leaders cannot see beyond their nose. They are only interested in tomorrow's power. I hold power today and I hold power tomorrow. That is the only thing that they are interested in. That is the real tragedy.
Honestly, you have actually said it all because that is what the point I was trying to make. It's about control, and unfortunately, that is the route Nigeria is going right now. We are in a situation where we fall into slavery formal slavery. That is a legal way of being enslaved. That is exactly what will happen, taking control of our institutions, especially institutions that has to do with resources. That is their aim. That is the only reason a lender will borrow a lendee money when they see a potential that the lender, sorry, the lendee either does not have, is not aware of, because sometimes the lendee may have a potential that he or she is not aware of. So if they see a potential that the lendee is either not aware of or is aware of but being foolish about it, being selfish about it, not thinking about, is not thinking of the long term repercussion. Either when either of these two plays out, of course, the lender takes advantage of it. So that is the only solution, because this Nigeria is well resourced. We are so rich in every capacity you can think about. We are so rich in solid, liquid minerals. We are so rich in human capital, human capital, human resources. We are rich in everything, in all capacity. The problem we have is just management. If only we can have good managers. Good managers. Honestly, Nigeria will compete with the world economic superpowers, because we have all those things, economic superpowers. Some of the economic superpowers don't even have what Nigeria has. They don't even have what we have as the number of resources. We have everything you can think about. We have everything. Some countries, they have just one or two major resources. Nigeria have multiple resources. So that is their target, and that is their plan. That is why the more we open our hands, we stretch our hands, asking, begging for loans, they oblige us with all pleasure. Because what we do is our leaders look at today, look at their interests, their personal interests. Do not project, fail selfishly and wickedly, fail to project into the future. Why the lenders see more of the future? They give you everything because they already see the future that our leaders have failed to see. They decided to be blind to. That's exactly why they are doing this. And unfortunately, I may disagree with you about this timing of this projection, because I believe that we are already either on the brink or at the precipice of being overwhelmed with debt, our resources being overwhelmed with debt, or we are really, really overwhelmed already. So as a result of that, I don't think that 2032 or this prediction will hit 2032. Because if Bola Tinubu continues this way, which I believe he will continue, because that man, Bola Tinubu, is recalcitrant. I consider him a reprobate, someone who does not have what it takes to change. He doesn't have what it takes to repent. He doesn't have, so he's a reprobate. He's already doomed for destruction. So he would continue, he would double down on these evil policies, evil and selfish policies that has to do with just sharing the Nigeria's national resources. That's exactly what he's doing, and he doesn't care. Besides, how old is he? He's probably, who knows the kind of sickness that he has. Probably he knows his days are numbered. Everyone's days are numbered, not even if you are young. But again, when I may say that, you should understand what I mean. He's much older, closer to the grave than any of us here. So the point is, honestly, I really, really, honestly, to be sincere, I wish this situation will get to this situation. You know why? And I pray for us to get to that situation. Because perhaps that is when Nigerians will wake up. Perhaps that is when that revolution that we have always wanted, that will revamp, overhaul the entire system, turn the system upside down, and start from the foundation, start all over from the foundation. Perhaps that is when, because if someone is not pushed to the wall, even goat, they say goat, you push goat to the wall, it will bite. Goat naturally does not bite. But if you push it to the wall, even sheep that is so quiet, sheep, everybody, sheep is a symbol of gentility, a sort of. So even sheep that is as quiet, as gentle as whatever, you push a sheep to the wall, the sheep will eventually turn to bite you. I think that is when Nigerians will really, really wake up, because at this point, as much as Nigerians are suffering, they are still the suffering Nigerians will still come on this platform and be raining hell and blame, so calling us all manner of names for actually trying to hold our leaders to account. That will tell you that we have probably not gotten to that break. We've not gotten to that breaking point. So I wish and I pray, because sometimes you really pray for something bad to happen so that the good one will eventually ensue. That is now my prayer, that we'll get to that point where, to this picture where that this man, this doctor has painted, where there will be a kind of anarchy in all sectors, that people, there will be shortage of basic and essential daily amenities and items that keeps human being going. Honestly, if we don't get to that point, that revolution that we expect will not take place. Honestly, because Nigerians we are so known to be, perpetually patient, perpetually tolerant. An average Nigerian can take anything from the government, can take any insult, can take any deprivation, can take any action from the government. That is Nigerians. They don't want to die. And so that is the point. But we'll come to that point where either you die of hunger or you die of bullets. So you will choose between the devil and the deep blue sea. And I pray we come to that, because Nigerians they seem to be docile. We Nigerians have become so foolish. We are behaving as if we have been hypnotized. We are as if we are operating under hypnosis, because that is how someone that is being influenced diabolically or spiritually behaves. Because we just behave at times as if our entire common sense have been impaired. Honestly, it is a crazy situation. So sad. All right, Barrister.
Well, Buhari's regime, when decides the borrowing, you hear his ministers, his apologies say, the ratio of borrowing to GDP that Nigeria has actually underborrowed. There was all manner of talks. In the first place, borrowing itself, look at the local level. You know what happens at the local level. You borrow, and when you are not able to pay, the man say, okay, give me that your land.
That's the point. That's what I'm saying.
And that land happens to be the only resource.
That is it.
The only capital that you and your family have. But you are forced to give. And by giving, you become perpetually poor. Whereas the person who took, even if the land is not worth what he lent you, he has made you perpetually poor.
That's the point.
Why he remains up there. So you can see that there's no argument, no reasonable economic argument for borrowing, particularly when we borrow and consume, when we borrow and put it into projects that cannot pay their way back. How do you borrow money to construct
the worst part is we are not only borrowing to consume, we are borrowing to loot,
to steal. Assuming it is not even stolen. then you put it in
Of
projects that
course.
cannot pay their way back, and then burden the other sectors of the economy that are bringing income.
I bet you if we have been, there's nothing, no, now don't get me wrong, viewers, there's nothing wrong in borrowing. All successful businessmen, but they are indebted, they are in one debt or the other. But what matters is how, what is the status, what is the financial status of the business. That is what matters. So if you are borrowing and plunging it into the business, of course you will grow. You will grow. You'll be able to pay the debt off and borrow more to even plunge into the business. And that is what makes business grow. That is what we are talking about here. Nigeria has been borrowing over the years, but mismanaging, not just mismanaging is even a good word. Looting this borrowing. They borrow this money and just share it. They share it
Look,
using projects, some projects as a front to actually siphon all this money.
look, nobody says that borrowing per se is wrong, but wise borrowing is what every country in the world. The United States is the most borrowed nation. Other countries are, but they do it wisely. You gave an analogy of a business. When you have started a business, a company, a production enterprise, and you borrow and increase your rate
Capacity.
of production,
Yeah.
increase your output, that means you will earn more, and that will give you the capacity to repay. But if you even start a company and you don't have any production basis or anything that you are just at the level where you have not even done any substantial business and you borrow the money. Now, you have to think in what way your business will benefit from that borrowing in the short term to realize sufficient money to pay back and also remain solvent, remain stable. That is the wise borrowing. We have never done any wise borrowing. We have, from day one, we had a Jaukuta steel mill that could have revolutionized our economy then. Nobody thought of borrowing to complete that project, sell these products at home and abroad to repay back. They will not talk about that. They will borrow for amorphous projects, and the money will end up into the pockets of politicians and government officials, and burden the rest of the country, the rest of Nigerians, with the repayment of the loan, burden our sources of income. That is where we are condemning this borrowing. As it is now, this borrowing should be limited to the most critical sectors that we revamp the economy. I do not support, I still insist, I will not support as we are today, to borrow money to construct a road in Nigeria. Honestly. I will still not support that.
Absolutely.
I will not support any borrowing that we just go into, even in infrastructure. There are certain infrastructures that contribute immediately and massively to the economy, to your business. That if you borrow for such infrastructure, is acceptable. Not every infrastructure. You can't borrow to build. You can't borrow to build offices and house your staff and say you are building infrastructure. That is unwise borrowing. That is what we are doing in Nigeria today.